everyone. Welcome to Things in My Head. I'm your host, Angel Birch. On today's show, we're very pleased to have with us Huffington Post money contributor. She's the Budgetnista, Tiffany Aliche. Tiffany has been featured on the Today Show, Essence Magazine, USA Today, PBS, and numerous other shows. She's written a book called The 1 Week Budget, which she's allowing us to give away on our website. So be sure to go there at www.thingsinmyheadblog.com to enter that contest. And we'll be back with the Budgetnista, Tiffany Aliche, right after this. Bridgeport Lake Bed and Breakfast outside Dallas, Texas can give you the perfect intermission of warmth and lake activities. From the long stem chocolate rose on your pillow at check-in to the made-to-order breakfast each morning, you'll leave your stress behind and immerse yourself in unparalleled Texas hospitality. Bridgeport Lake Bed and Breakfast. For reservations, call 940-644-0081 or visit us on the internet at www.bridgeportlakebnb.com. We're back with Tiffany Aliche, the Budgetnista. Tiffany, hi, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Tiffany, this book is amazing. I've looked at this book. Now, I have the Kindle version, and just let my listeners know that on Kindle, this book is only $3.49. If you want it in paperback and you might want to get it in paperback because it has a lot of little worksheets and things like that you can do. It's $13.15, and it's worth every single penny of that. But it's called The 1 Week Budget. How on earth did you figure out that it only took a week to do your budget?
Honestly, it can take even shorter than a week. I used to be a preschool teacher for a number of years. And what I noticed is that most people have a preschool understanding of their money and that they needed boundaries and rules, like do this today, do this tomorrow. And I thought, you know what? A week doesn't sound intimidating. Let me fit my 12 steps of how to build and automate a budget within a week period.
That's crazy. So it's true. Everything that you learn in life is taught in preschool.
Yes.
Now, we started this book, and I got to tell you, we never even really got past chapter 2 because, and you and I talked about this the other day on the phone. Most people don't get past the first chapter. They can't get past that. Now, let me tell you what the first chapter is. I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. The first chapter is just simply making a list of all your expenses, and that means now you've got it in there as candy. For us, it's chewing gum. But you've got to list like every little thing that you spend money on. And you can't just say, oh, well, I buy chewing gum when I buy groceries. And then you might go pick up a pack later on in between week. But that's still groceries. No. If you go pick up a pack of chewing gum at the store in between, you got to put that down, right?
I want you at first to just let your mind explode. I want everything that you spend money on, from candy, from toll, from dog food, from hanging out with your friends on the weekend, because that's where most of our money goes. You know, the bills we know, the utilities we know, but it's like this miscellaneous stuff that where our money is wasted. So that's why I have that as the first step.
My husband calls that the nickel and diming it to death.
Yes, at first. But then you see, as the 1 week budget goes on, I show you how to kind of put all of those expenses together and give yourself a weekly allowance.
Oh, so we get an allowance.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of us would probably look at our expenses and look at our budget and go, yeah, right.
You know what? I always say this. We always have more money than we think. Most of us are living what I like to call your most expensive life. So it's like, you go to your favorite, say, clothing store and you see a pair of jeans that are $40. You go back the next day, they're $20. So it's like same jeans, less money. There are discounts in your life you're not taking. And I'm going to show you through the book how to take those discounts.
We did a show not that long ago, actually in last year. I can say that now. We did a show last year that was with Coupon Coach Lisa, and she talked to us about taking a lot of those discounts, not only at the grocery store, but at, when you're going to buy clothes and when you're going to buy toys and when you're going to buy things. And I think that's something that we don't utilize enough. These sales cycles that come around, we don't realize. These stores are smart. They're smarter than the average bear. They know we're going to spend money at their store if they make something look attractive. And it may not necessarily be on sale.
And sometimes the discounts is not even couponing.
Right.
Meaning, for example, I had car insurance for years. And something said, Tiffany, go get a new quote. I went online. Within 10 minutes, I realized I was spending literally double. And I'm now spending $700 a year. Can you imagine?
Wow.
And better coverage. I actually got more coverage. So that's what I mean by living your most expensive life. So now I have more coverage for $700 less a year.
That's a good idea. Most people don't even think about their car insurance unless they buy a new car or, something like that. And then they think, oh, well, maybe I should get a quote. But I don't know too many people that can afford to really buy a new car these days. How often should we get things like that checked?
I would say once a year, even if you
Yeah.
just do it you can align it with your birthday, or maybe you align it with one of your kids' birthdays or your pet birthday, something that, it comes up every year. And then what I do is I call all of my service providers. So that's cable, cell phone, car insurance, anyone who provides a service. And I have a script and actually posted it on my blog. And the script is just, hi, my name's Tiffany. I've been a great customer and I want to continue to be, but financially right now I'm kind of strapped. What can you do to help me?
Tiffany's website, she just mentioned that, is www.thebudgetnista.com. We're talking budget all day long here. This lady knows what she's talking about. Where did this all start for you?
It started at home, where really money education should start. So my father was a CPA, an accountant, and he also was a financial officer for a nonprofit. And so he had 5 daughters, which is scary enough. And so
let's see, 5 boyfriends, 5 weddings, 5.
So I think his worry was, okay, who's going to look after my daughters when I'm not here? So he taught us how to change the oil, mow the lawn, and about finances very early on. It was just a normal family conversation, something like, Daddy, can we have some ices? And he would say, this morning you were in the shower, you took an extra 10 minutes. Each minute is $1. So that's $10 worth of ices that you will not be able to get this week. And I'd be like, what? But, when you're 7 or 8, he would align everything with what mattered to us.
Wow.
And so I learned very early on that, the things you do with your money are tied to the way you live your life.
Right. Now, you have a story in the book that I just loved, and I had to tell my husband about this story. You have the same bike that you bought back when you were, what, 10?
11.
11.
Yes. So for my 11th birthday, I wanted a bike. And my father, who was notoriously tight with money, he said I could get a bike if I helped him pay some bills. So I didn't know if he really meant I had to pay bills.
You're going to go out and get a job?
Yes. But what he meant was how parents back in the day would do their bills at the dining room table with like the calculator with the paper coming out of the back. And so he was doing that. He just meant he wanted me to add up the bills he had in his ledger and subtract it from what he and my mom made. And I thought, okay, I could do math. I'm 10, at the time. And so I added them up and I subtracted it from what he and my mom made. And I realized, wow, I didn't know if they made a lot or little, but I did know less and more.
Well, yeah, I don't think kids have any idea how much their parents make. My father used to say, I'm not a money tree. I think that's the idea that a lot of kids have.
Yes. Exactly. So for that lesson taught me like, wow, so mommy and daddy make this large pile. And by the time they finish paying the bills, it's a small pile left. And so my father was like, well, what's left over? You can use some of it for your bike. So 1, I learned that there were bills. 2, I learned that all of the money that's left over after the bills, all of it wasn't just for me. Some of it had to go to my sisters and, other things, which I wasn't happy about.
Right.
So the original bike I wanted was this cute perfect little purple bike that was just my size. And I kind of financially forecasted and thought, well, if I get something that's just my size now, next year, I'm going to have to get another bike because I was already growing out of my clothes and giving them to my younger sisters.
That's pretty amazing forethought for an 11-year-old.
Yeah. Well, it's because I could see he was massaging that into me. Like, are you sure you want this size? Because just like your favorite red dress, you hate that your sister's wearing it,
Okay.
So I thought he's right. So I said, I'm going to get a larger bike to grow into. So I got this big blue, ugly bike. That's the only way to describe it. And even he was like, are you sure? And I said, yes. And so I rode that bike in middle school. In high school, I played tennis. It was I was captain of the team, rode that bike to practice.
Wow.
I used to deliver papers, rode that bike. After college, I didn't have a car, rode that bike. My dad is retired now. The bike is still home and he rides it for exercise.
Wow.
So from 11 to 34, which is how old I am now, that bike, I've never gotten another bike. And it was the best financial lesson ever.
Well, and that is a really great financial lesson because now you can just take $2 spray can and go spray the ugly bike. I don't think that'll break the budget, but what a great lesson. I don't think enough parents really sit their kids down and say, hey, these are the things that you want. These are the bills we have. I think there's always, I don't know, maybe I'm just old school, but when I grew up, it was kind of hush hush. The kids just didn't know how much the parents made. It just wasn't talked about. I kind of get the feeling that it was really talked about in your family, that it was kind of an open discussion.
It was, and I think it's strange too, because my father is very old school, but in that one aspect, he was not. I mean, we would sit down. I can remember when my mother, she was a nurse, her hospital was closing, and it was right before Christmas, and we sat down, and my dad said, we have to be honest, mommy's hospital's closing, and we're not going to have the funds to make Christmas like we normally do. But if you guys can wait a month, because as a nurse, it was easy to get a job back then because nurses were in high demand. So literally, we put up the tree in January. We had Christmas in January, bought presents in January. So, but imagine as a kid, had he not explained that to us, I would have been devastated.
Right. That's a good idea too. Golly, guys, she's got so many ideas, and this book lays it all out. I went through this with my husband. I want to get back to chapter 1 because this list that you make is going to set up your budget for basically the rest of your year. This one list. If you're an A-type personality like my husband, and he's going to hate that I even mentioned this, but he's the type of person that he'll put everything down on paper, but then he wants to put all the amounts in and, well, these are my bills. I already know what the bills are. Let's just eliminate those and then you can make the list however you want to. And I'm like, we need to do this together. I think you just get so programmed to pay certain bills at certain times. This is the amount they're going to be. Why not just put them in the budget?
You are. And honestly, this is what I tell people. In 7 days, this is the budget I created for myself when I was 26. So fast forward till now, you are not going to have to recreate this budget. Instead, what I've done is I've gone in and changed line items like, oh, I'm not with this cellular provider. I'm with this one. I moved from this apartment to this home. And so you would literally only have to do this one major time in your life, and you can live, and not have to worry about your spending, because everything in my life is automated, even tithing, charity, everything is automated. And so what I just do is I take an allowance every week, and it's guilt-free. I get to go on vacation and pay cash. I get to, if I want to get a car, I have a car fund. So you don't have to make a whole lot to have a whole lot. And that's what the 1 week budget teaches you.
Now, what about going online and doing the online banking thing with all of the fees and things like that? Do we dare?
Well, honestly, if your bank is charging you fees to bank online, you have the wrong bank. Because the bank that I use doesn't charge fees. And if you're really nice to your banker, they will tell you ways to get around fees. So for example, with my bank, I found out that my checking could be free if I transferred $100 every month from my checking account to my savings account. So what I did was I set like an automatic cycle transfer. So I'll transfer $100 from my checking to my savings, and then from my savings back to my checking because I need the $100.
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking was I usually need that $100. Yeah, so check with your bank, because I was just thinking that days of free checking are pretty much gone. I know that, for example, my bank, we can do one of two things. We can either keep a certain amount in our bank account, which is almost impossible. I mean, it's great at the beginning of the month when you get the paycheck and everything's cool, but when you start paying bills, you're not going to have that amount in the bank anymore. In fact, you're going to have like $5 left at the end of the month, and that's just not going to cut it. But the other thing that you can do is have an automatic transfer. So like if your employer, or even if you're in school and you get your student loans or your VA check or whatever it is, you get that automatically deposited into your bank account. A lot of times your bank will waive the fee because they're getting that business.
So there's always a way. Just ask.
Yeah. I think that's another thing. We don't ask. Why are we so afraid, Tiffany?
You know why? Because it's been ingrained in us, and it's really not that scary. I mean, once you get used to asking, and once you get used to being honest and saying, I really don't have it this month, you'd be surprised how many of your, debt collectors, how many people that you have financial transactions with will understand, because 90% of people do not pick up the phone. So the 10% get all the benefits.
You mentioned debt collectors, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people really are afraid of is those debt collectors. Even listing them on the list is tough.
It can be. I call the first 3 steps of my book the tears and tissue steps.
Right. Gee, I can't imagine why.
Because that's when you get to see, how much money you're making versus how much money you're spending. And sometimes it can be a little scary, but that's just the scariest part. After that, I show you how to fix everything. Ultimately, I started the Budgetnista as a place where people can get help whether or not you spend money or not. So I give away the first chapter, the first 3 steps, away for free on my website, thebudgetnista.com.
Awesome. Okay, you can also find her on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest. Just search for The Budgetnista. It's all there. We're going to be back with Tiffany right after this. Guess what I just did? I just saved 80% on my grocery bill. Yep, walked right into the store with my coupons and saved 80% at the checkout. Want to know how I did it? I went to couponcoachlisa.com and became a member for just $5. Coupon Coach Lisa has easy-to-follow tutorial videos that showed me step-by-step how to get the most savings for my grocery dollar. Oh, and this is not just a one-time thing either. CouponCoachLisa.com has taught me how to do this every time I go shopping. I've saved so much money by joining CouponCoachLisa.com. Now I can even go on a date with my husband. Get connected, stay connected with CouponCoachLisa.com. We are back with Tiffany Aliche. She's the Budgetnista, Huffington Post money contributor. We're talking about her book. It is The 1 Week Budget, and it's going to redefine your whole life, not just your budget, your whole life. Tiffany, I got to ask you about a chapter in your book on day 2. Separation anxiety seems to be the topic of this. Talking about separation can be a good thing. What are you talking about in that chapter? What do you mean separation?
I like to say that there are 3 different levels of control that you have on your spending. And so you have to separate your spending. There's cash spending, there's bills, and there's somewhere in between, which is like utilities. And so if you can identify the 3 different types of spending you have, then you can identify the 3 levels of control. So you have the most control on your cash spending.
Well, I'm thinking the cash spending is the ones where you go to the convenience store and you pick up the chai tea latte in the machine or whatever it is these days.
And so that's like, that's groceries, that's gas, that's haircuts, that's going out with your friends. That's the mysterious miscellaneous that nobody knows what that is.
Right. And your money all disappears in that one.
Yes. And so then there's utilities, which you have a little less control, but you have some control, like turning down the heat, turning off the lights. And then there are bills, which you have a little less control, but you still have some control. I mean, it just requires bigger changes, like you might have to move. You might have to refinance your car.
Well, wait a minute. Moving is expensive.
Well, I say this, you have to compare if moving. So if I'm going to move to an apartment, which is $200 a month less versus how much moving costs. So you want to compare the cost. So if I could save, $1,200 a year and moving is going to cost me $300, then saving the $1,200 a year is worth it.
Then call up your friend Bubba in his truck and load it up.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Got it. So after that, we reduce our spending. Okay, let's say we get this and we're starting to see a little bit of a change. We can reduce our spending. We're not going to be able to go on that Caribbean vacation anytime soon, Tiff.
I beg to differ. I say this. So most money is gained and lost in $5, $10, and $20 bills. So if you're looking for this big windfall, whenever I teach my classes, so I teach financial literacy all over. And whenever I teach, I ask people, raise your hand if you won the lottery. Like, I think I've literally taught thousands of people. I think maybe 3 times someone has won the lottery and it hasn't even been over 10,000, meaning like your windfall's not coming. But what is coming is that 1, 5, 10, or 20. And so if I can show you how to trap that 1, 5, 10, or 20, you can have that Caribbean vacation. Here's a great way to do so. So everyone has apps on their phone. So there's a theory I have called unexpected money. So say you're going to your favorite store and you're shopping and you see, I don't know, you're buying a toaster oven and the toaster oven is originally $50. Unbeknownst to you, the toaster oven is 50% off. You go to the counter, instead of paying $50, they say, it's $25. You do a little happy dance in the aisle. You're excited. But that was money that you planned to spend, that $25, correct? So what you do is, as soon as you finish paying, you pull over to the side in the aisle and you transfer $25 from your checking account that you were using to an online savings account that you set aside, which is free. And you keep doing that anytime you save unexpectedly. Or maybe your friend pays for lunch and you were going to pay. Maybe your hairdresser is like, it's on me today. Wow. Whatever money you expected to pay and didn't have to, that's unexpected money. Transfer it. And so I've literally use that money to go on vacation. I mean, in a year, that might be $200-$300. That might be $2,000-$3,000.
Right. Yeah, my grandmother used to have a saying, if it's found money, spend it. And, when you're growing up, you think of that found money as, oh, I get to go to the store right now and spend that money. But what you're saying, instead of spending that found money, put it in a savings account and say, hey, I'm going to have a bigger goal. I'm worth more than this. And that's another thing that you say a lot in your book is, I'm worth more than this. When we're spending money on that Starbucks coffee. As much as K-cups are, everybody, you don't need a Keurig to get chai tea latte out of, and I say that a lot, chai tea lattes, because it's my favorite, but you don't need the Keurig to get the chai tea latte out of the cup. And you can spend like $8 with a coupon, it might be 7 or 6 or whatever, and have chai tea latte every now and again. You don't have to go to Starbucks, but that's found money, right? And you just put it in the account and leave it. And
exactly.
I love that. So now in your book, you have all the steps that we need, not just to get the budget, but to actually live by it. And I like that. The implementation part of it is, I kind of think that that's kind of a tears part too sometimes, because you do go to the store and you do see things that you want. And sometimes window shopping just doesn't cut it.
And I say, go for it. That's what your weekly allowance is. I will show you how to set aside a weekly amount of money that you're allowed to do those things with. I don't believe in living in a place of lack or restriction. Instead, I use my budget to show me what I can do more of. Like you can go on vacation. You can get that Cinnabon, which is like my favorite.
Ooh, we know secrets.
You can do those things, and I could do them guilt-free. That's the key. My thing is, I'm not teaching you what you can't do. I want to show you what you can do without the guilt.
Oh, so it's not like a diet where the first 3 letters are die.
No.
You're going to go on a savings expedition.
Because what I want you to show, I want you to find those places in your budget that you're wasting money but not benefiting. Like, for example, with my car insurance, that I didn't realize that $700 a year, why should I pay that for less insurance? That's not something that gives me pleasure or I need to do. So now that $700 is put in my vacation account. And so that's the premise of the 1 week budget, is finding money in places that you don't really need to spend. And then putting it toward the things that you really, really desire in life.
I love that. I love that premise. The only thing that I didn't really understand in the book, and you're going to have to explain this to me, is the budget grid. Now that comes later. Okay. That comes after you have already done the budget. You've already decided you're going to implement these things. What is the budget grid? So
the budget grid is just a physical picture of what your money is doing. It's just a list of everything that you're spending money on for the month, how much each one of those things cost you every month. It actually has like the date that things are due. It's just like a physical picture, so you can see, this is what my monthly money looks like, and this is what
Didn't we do that at the beginning, though?
So in the beginning, it was more loosely done. So with the budget grid, we have it like almost like in an Excel spreadsheet. So you just see it. And really, that's really great for couples. So say you and your honey are like, did we pay the bill? Did we? The budget grid is on your computer or on your refrigerator. And it's just a grid instead of like a regular list. So you can see, yes, we did. It's been checked off.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So it's basically your monthly spreadsheet of everything you did, how much it was, when it was due, when it was paid, that sort of thing. Yeah, I can see that you could really get a hold of your money. Now, being that this is New Year's resolutions month, and listeners, we're really trying to help you to get a hold of your finances today with the Budgetnista, Tiffany Aliche. One thing that kind of concerns me is with New Year's resolutions, we're all gung-ho at the beginning of the year. And then a month or two down the road, we're like, oh, I got this, and we try to do it on our own without all of the tools that we have at our disposal. Hint, hint. And we slack off, and then we end up going back into our old comfortable habits. What's going to make this stick for us?
What's going to make it stick is automation. Automation is the new discipline.
I automatically spend money, therefore I have none.
I'm not as disciplined as my finances would suggest. People don't realize, for me, that if it wasn't for automation, in my 20s, I was overdraft queen. I mean, they knew me at the bank. They're like, oh, hey. It was the bill.
That's not a good thing to be known for.
Exactly. And so that's because, I didn't have automation. But now what's going to save you is that while you're feeling pumped up and excited, is that you should automate things. So one thing you should do, definitely over everything else, is to create what I call a bills account. So go to your bank and see if you can get a free checking account. If not there, go to another bank. And you're going to separate your bill money every week or every 2 weeks, however you get paid. And that way, that account is specifically just to pay your bills. Because sometimes you need to separate to see what you really have, you get your check and you're like, woohoo, I'm rich.
Yeah.
But you realize, wait, half of this doesn't belong to me.
Right.
The sooner you get that, the better. So that's number one. You want to get a bills account. Number two, go online. There's a site called bankrate.com that will rate all these national banks for you and let you know how much interest you get, which ones are free. And if you go to Bankrate, you choose a savings account. and you want an online bank only because
Okay.
you want to save and stash your money there. Because what
And
happens,
it's not easily
yes,
accessible.
so it
Got
takes 2 to 5 business days for you to get your money. So no more impulse spending with an
Ah,
online bank, so you want to have that. So
yeah.
that's two. So if you just do those simple things, have a bills account and an online savings account. If you don't do anything else, those things are automated. You don't have to worry for the rest
Right.
of the year.
Wow. Just don't forget you have your
Mhm.
money in there, or like me, forget your
Yes.
password. That's when it's nice to have a spouse. You have a password backup.
Uh-huh.
Let's get back to just one small, and it's really not small. It's a big issue with a lot of people, especially after the housing crisis, after a lot of people, especially in the Northwest, have lost jobs. Let's face it, it's the economy tanked. Okay. And when it tanked, it took a lot of us with it. So if you have no income, or if your money is literally gone, and maybe you've just started this being the new year, and you thought everything was going to be great, you have very little savings, looking for a job all the time. How do we stretch our money in a circumstances like that where it's an emergency?
Honestly, you're describing me perfectly. When I lost my job in the height of the recession, 2009, 2008, 2009, and I was a teacher, and I just knew I can't lose my job. I'm a teacher, and my school closed, and I had a home, and I was faced with this: how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to pay my bills? And I was blessed enough that I had some savings, but still. And so I had to make tough choices. For example, some tough choices I had to make, and you might have to make tough choices if you're in this position, is I had to move back home because I just said, like, Tiffany, you cannot pay your mortgage. It's just not going to happen. I called the mortgage company. I applied for modification 3 times, was denied. And so I moved back home, and not even in when I was in high school, at least I had like my own little space in my parents' home, but my little sister was in there now. And so I had to move back to my middle school bed.
Wow.
And I can remember I turned 30 and I was like, that night I was home laying in my middle school bed with my feet hanging off the end thinking, this can't be life.
You know what? I was there too at about that age. So, and I had a child in tow.
I can't even imagine. So you have to make tough decisions like, okay, if I have no income, then how can I literally cut most of my expenses out? So I ended up renting out my home to help pay for the mortgage. And, like I said, I moved back home and I just took whatever job that I could find. You have to make some tough choices. There were no more getting my hair done. There was no more hanging out with my friends. There was nothing except necessities. So you have to really assess. There are people, this blows my mind. There are people who are losing their home and still have cable.
Right.
You have to tell yourself, I have to cut out the non-necessities because it's taking away from you living a basic life. No cable, no going out if you have no money.
Now, I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret. My husband and I, we had the beautiful 2,400 square foot home, fully designed. I was an interior designer in my former life. And I mean, we had marble bathrooms and beautiful wood floors and the whole 9 yards. And we wanted to put a fence around the yard at one point. And my friends were like, wow, that's just so expensive. And I said, well, my problem is, do I get a wrought iron fence or do I get a chain link fence? Because I think they're hideous. And, I said $3,000 to get this wrought iron fence. And I'm just kind of debating on whether I do that or I, do something else. And they're like, just the fact that you're even thinking that you can spend $3,000 on a fence was mind blowing to them. But that was my lifestyle, that we had money. $3,000 was okay. But then the bottom fell out. The economy tanked. We made that tough decision. We actually sold our house and we moved into an RV. We lived in that RV because it was cheaper for us to live in an RV. It was just the two of us. Our kids were gone. We didn't need the 2,400 square foot house. We didn't need to heat it. We didn't need to cool it. We didn't need to, spend all the money on the appliances and everything. So we got the RV. We lived in that for a year. And during that time, my husband made the decision to go back to school, and best decision he ever made, because not only was he retraining now for something that he could do in the future, but it's something he loved. It's not just going out and getting the job that you have to get, but it's now getting the job that he loves doing, and even at his age, he's still got a good 15, 20 years of working and he's going to enjoy it. And I love that so much more if you can make those sacrifices. It's all about the sacrifices. It's all about the choices, right, Tiffany?
Yeah, kudos to you, because so many people are not willing to make a choice like that, but look where you are now as a result. Honestly, because I moved home, now I was able to live a lean lifestyle, start this business, the Budgetnista. This is what I do full time. People fly me around the country. Wow. My book, The 1 Week Budget, is #1 on Amazon. I self-published, and it provides like almost a quarter of my income. That would not have happened if I hadn't made the tough choice to cut my lifestyle totally down to the necessities and to rebuild from there.
All right, so you can find the book on Amazon, and not only are you helping Tiffany out with her income, but you're helping yourself out with your income. You really are. Honestly, I didn't get past the first 3 chapters because I keep going back over things that, okay, I missed this. Okay, I didn't quite understand this the first time I read it, and I went back over it. It's the 1-week budget. It may take you a week to really get the budget down. It's going to take me a week to read the book. Yeah, there's a ton of information in there that we can't possibly go over in our little 30-minute show. But Tiffany, this is crazy. We can change our life in a week. Who would have thought?
Change your budget, change your life.
Absolutely. So if you want to visit Tiffany, she is at thebudgetnista.com. You can visit her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, LinkedIn, all the same thing. Just search for The Budgetnista. You'll find her. She's everywhere. She's on the Huffington Post Money. She regularly contributes there. In fact, we just saw you on Huff Live the other day. You're allowed to ask her questions too. She is a consultant and she does this for a living. So if you have a church group, if you have a business, or if you have somewhere where you need a budget class and you need to talk about money matters, she is the one to call. And she's got all that information on her website. Tiffany, thank you so much for being with us today on Things in My Head.
Oh, thank you so much. This is such a great show. I had such a good time.
Go to our website at www.thingsinmyheadblog.com. We're going to have all the information for Tiffany there. We're going to have it listed. We're going to have a few little pictures, maybe a couple of videos that she might share with us so that you can see what she does, how she does it, and how good she is at it. She's helping me get my budget into shape. So by next year, with all of these New Year's resolutions, I should be skinny in the hips and fat in the wallet. That's the goal. We'll see you next time.